The Harvard students nicknamed her Bargain Maria because of her thrift store clothes and packed lunches. What they found in her dorm room would make them question everything they thought they knew about wealth. Maria Elena Rodríguez was a sophomore in the Department of Economics at Harvard University. She lived in Wigglesworth Hall, a dormitory at the prestigious university in Cambridge, Massachusetts. 19-year-old Maria, a Latina from Los Angeles, looked very different from the other students at the university. Harvard University was one of America's most prestigious institutions, and studying there was a profound privilege. With its red brick buildings, historic courtyards, and disillusioned foliage, it represented a centuries-long academic tradition. Being a student in this place, where success stories were written around every corner, was both a source of pride and pressure. As she walked through Harvard's halls, Maria's attire caught my attention, but for the wrong reasons. She always wore the same three-piece outfit: faded blue jeans, a white cotton t-shirt, and a black cardigan. While clean and tidy, these clothes were clearly thrift store purchases. On her feet were white sneakers, repeatedly repaired, and a worn-out backpack draped over her shoulder. Her hair was always pulled back into a simple ponytail, and she wore no makeup. She wore only a simple watch as an accessory. The other students at the university came from a completely different world. Madison Wheeler was a blonde girl from Connecticut whose father was a hedge fund manager on Wall Street. She carried a different designer bag every week and shopped for Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Hermes. Her hair was professionally styled, her makeup impeccable, and her clothes were the latest trends. Madison's dorm room exuded a luxury reminiscent of her family's penthouse on Madison Avenue. Her friend, Brittany Chen, was of Asian descent from California, and her family owned large companies in the tech sector. Brittany reflected the culture of Silicon Valley's tech elite: minimalist yet expensive design, cutting edge gadgets, and sustainable yet luxury brands. Both were understanding but condescending towards Maria. Harvard's social structure operated with strict rules. Students were often grouped according to their socioeconomic status. The children of the upper crust old money families, those descended from the old Boston families of Winthrop, Cabot, and Lowell, remained in their own exclusive circles. The children of the newly wealthy families, on the other hand, expressed themselves through luxury brands. The rich kids hung out among themselves, frequenting expensive restaurants in Harvard Square and spending weekends at family vacation homes in Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. Middle class students kept to their own circles, attending more affordable events and opting for free activities on campus. Real scholarship students, however, were often required to work, so they couldn't attend many social events. Maria, however, didn't really belong to any group. She ate lunch on the historic benches in Harvard Yard, bringing peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from home. While other students were buying 15 organic salads and $8 artisan coffees at trendy Harvard Square cafes, Maria would go to class with a thermos of homemade coffee. Even this thermos was plastic and cheap looking, the complete opposite of the other students' Hydro Flask or Yeti brands. One October day, after microeconomics class, students were gathering for a group project. Professor Williams was one of Harvard's most respected economists, and his classes were incredibly challenging. You'll work in groups of 4, and each group will analyze a different economic model. This project will count for 40% of your final grade, he had said. Madison, Brittany, and their friend Jackson, a prep school kid with a family business in Boston, immediately gathered. Jackson's father owned one of Boston's oldest shipping companies, and his family had lived in America since the Mayflower. Such legacy students held a special status at Harvard. As the class formed groups, Maria was left last. This made everyone uncomfortable because no one wanted to be a burden but no one wanted to openly reject Maria either. I think Maria is in our group, Madison said with a forced smile, but there was a hint of reluctance in her voice. Of course, Maria said gently, aware of the situation but still polite. I'd be happy to help you. Jackson whispered to Brittany, at least our grades are good, and she seems to be a hard worker. Financial aid students usually work harder. Maria heard this but didn't respond. She was used to such comments. Brittany interjected, yeah, and diversity would be good. The admissions office values diversity anyway. This comment bothered Maria because it implied she was in the group because of her ethnicity, not her talent. They decided to meet in Madison's dorm room for group meetings. Madison's room was like a showroom. A state-of-the-art MacBook Pro, an iPad, a designer lamp, Ralph Lauren bedding, photos of family vacations on the walls, skiing in Aspen, vintage in France, yachting in the Caribbean, and expensive artwork. The room also had a mini fridge, a coffee maker, and a snack cabinet. When Maria arrived, she pulled out only a simple spiral notebook and an old Bic pen. Even the pen looked cheap, with chew marks on the plastic tip. Maria, don't you have a computer? Brittany asked with genuine curiosity. I use the computers in the library, Maria said. It's more practical. It's quiet there. It was a lie. Maria actually had some of the latest technology, but she kept it under wraps. Madison started acting protectively toward Maria. You can use my laptop if you want, or Jackson has his old iPad, I guess. No thanks. I really like working at the library. As they worked on the project, Jackson said, would you like to come to our summer house in the Hamptons this weekend? We could work there, and it would be really fun. The beach house has an infinity pool. Great idea, Madison said enthusiastically. Maria, would you like to come too? I'll cover the plane ticket, no problem. Maria smiled gently. That's very kind, but I have to work. I have a part-time job. This was a lie Maria used frequently. She didn't actually have a part-time job. Oh, sure. We totally understand, Brittany said, understanding but pityingly. I just wish we were better off financially. Jackson added, and college shouldn't be this expensive in this country. You're a hard-working student. It's not fair that you have to struggle with these challenges. Maria listened patiently to these comments. Her friends were well-meaning, but they constantly assumed she was poor. Daily life at Harvard was an expensive game, and every activity indirectly reflected social status. Students were constantly spending money. $300 textbooks, $50 campus event tickets, $80 group dinners, $200 weekend shopping trips. These expenses seemed normal to the vast majority because their families had unlimited financial support. Maria didn't participate in any of this. She borrowed textbooks from the library, attended free lectures instead of campus events, and ate instant ramen in her dorm instead of group meals. These behaviors reinforced the perception in others that she was money-strapped. The situation became even more difficult when winter arrived. New England winters were brutal. While other students wore $600 to $300 winter coats from brands like Patagonia, North Face, and Canada Goose, Maria wore a thin jacket and an old sweater. The harsh Cambridge winds took their toll, but she didn't complain. Maria, you're going to get sick in this cold. I suggest you get a serious coat, Madison said with genuine concern. Even if it's from Target, at least get something warm. I'm doing okay, thanks, Maria said through clenched teeth. She shivered from the cold, but she held on to her pride. Meanwhile, Madison whispered to her friends, poor girl. I wish we could help her. Maybe I could give her one of the old coats in my closet. At least she won't get frostbite. Brittany added, or we could start a GoFundMe. We'll share it on social media, and the Harvard community will help. Jackson joked, she hasn't had hypothermia yet. We still have a chance. Maria heard these conversations but said nothing. Every day her friends grew more and more concerned about her condition, and it became even harder for Maria. Over time, they nicknamed her Bargain Maria on campus. People said this behind her back. No one dared to say it to her face, but Maria knew. In fact, she once overheard two girls talking in the bathroom. Bargain Maria is wearing the same sweatshirt to class again. Does she only have one piece? The situation became even more pronounced in the cafeteria. Harvard's cafeteria was expensive, and most students receive unlimited credit cards from their parents. Maria always opted for the cheapest options. Maria, how do you concentrate when you eat so little? Brittany asked, genuinely curious. Isn't it a nutritional deficiency? It's a matter of habit, Maria said with a smile. Even if I eat too much, it makes me drowsy. Madison added, sounding worried, maybe you should take a vitamin supplement. CVS has cheap vitamins. These suggestions both amused and saddened Maria. Her friends were genuinely concerned, but they completely misunderstood her situation. Despite all these challenges, Maria excelled academically. Her grades were excellent, and professors considered her among the brightest among their students. She excelled in economics, not only understanding complex theories, but also applying innovative perspectives to them. Professor Williams was deeply impressed when he read Maria's macroeconomics correspondence papers. This student doesn't just understand theories, she combines them with real-world applications. She can perform postgraduate level analysis, he thought. Maria's paper, which examined the impact of Federal Reserve policies on income inequality, was supported by very detailed data analysis. Getting an A+ at Harvard was extremely difficult, and most students would have been happy with a B+. However, Maria consistently earned A+, and this was remarkable. The questions she asked professors during office hours were also graduate level. Professor Chen from the statistics department asked Maria one day, are you considering graduate school? Your research potential is very high. I'm not sure yet, Maria replied. There are financial considerations. This response upset Professor Chen, and she began to consider speaking to the financial aid office. However, Maria's academic success created a different perception among her friends. Of course she works hard. She has nothing else to do, Jackson said. Without a social life, she can focus all her energy on her studies. She doesn't have networking, internships, or family obligations like we do. Madison, on the other hand, had begun to feel protective of Maria. Do you think she'd be much more successful if she had better opportunities? Imagine if she had tutoring, prep courses, summer programs like us. Brittany added, yes, she's naturally brilliant. It's incredible that she's so successful without our advantages. These comments both flattered and irritated Maria. The fact that her success was perceived as more impressive because of her disadvantaged background obscured the true value of her talent. This was especially evident in study groups. Maria solved complex problems very quickly but kept her explanations simple. Her friends commented, Maria has studied more than us. Of course she knows. Brittany once asked, Maria, how do you know so much? Since you can't afford books, do you always read at the library? Yes, the library is very comprehensive, Maria replied half truthfully. But the truth was, Maria had subscriptions to expensive publications like Forbes, Harvard Business Review, and the Financial Times at home. Thanks to her family connections, she also had internship opportunities on Wall Street, which she turned down. One night in late November, an emergency alarm went off. The electrical system in Wigglesworth Hall had failed, forcing students to evacuate. The fire department and electrical technicians entered the building. Maria was in the library when the alarm went off. She rushed to her dorm room to find the building evacuated. The electrical technicians were checking every room. Madison, Brittany, and the other students were waiting in the courtyard. They were shivering in the cold weather, but the situation seemed amusing to them. I hope Maria's belongings aren't damaged, Madison said anxiously. She has very few belongings anyway. Just then, one of the electrical technicians emerged from Maria's room and shouted to his friend, Tom, you should see this room. I've never seen so many expensive electronics in any other room. The students looked at each other in surprise. The technician continued, a state-of-the-art MacBook Pro, an iPad Pro, a professional camera, Bose headphones. What is this girl studying? Engineering? Madison's jaw dropped. Which room? Room 317. It says Maria Rodriguez on the door. The students were stunned. Maria's image of poor didn't match the technician's description. After the electrical fault was fixed, everyone returned to their rooms. But Madison, Brittany, and Jackson were filled with curiosity. The next day, Madison mustered up the courage and approached Maria. Maria, last night the electrician mentioned the electronics in your room. We were so surprised because you kept saying there was nothing there. Maria knew this moment she'd been waiting for had arrived. She took a deep breath. Would you mind coming to my room? I can explain it to you. Maria's dorm room was truly amazing. Just as the technician had said, it was filled with the latest gadgets, but they were all neatly stored in closets. The bed was made of simple but high-quality fabrics. The bookshelf was filled with economics, finance, and investment books, but all the latest expensive editions. What's that like? Brittany asked. Maria smiled. Because I'm not really poor. My family is very wealthy. Jackson's eyes widened. What do you mean? My father is Eduardo Rodriguez. He's the guy with the real estate empire in Los Angeles. He's on the Forbes list. Madison's face went pale. Eduardo Rodriguez? Is that your father? The guy in charge of the mega projects in Beverly Hills? Yes, Maria said calmly. But why? Brittany asked. Why are you acting like this? Why are you wearing cheap clothes? Maria looked at the window and began to explain. Because I want to learn what real friendship is. People who know I'm rich treat me differently. They either want to be friends for my money or they're afraid of me. I always had people around me in high school, but they were all fake friends. They hung out with me because I gave them expensive gifts and paid for the parties. They weren't interested in my true self. Madison bowed her head in shame. And we treated you with pity. Yes, Maria said, but there was no anger in her voice. But it taught me a lot. For example, I saw that you, Madison, have a truly kind heart. Brittany, you're a very empathetic person. Jackson, you think much deeper than you seem. You passed that test. Even when you thought I was poor, you treated me with respect. You didn't exclude me. That's invaluable. Jackson scratched his head. But did you have to go to such extremes? I mean, you were cold all winter. Maria laughed. That strengthened my character. I learned what true wealth is. Not money, not things, real connections, trust, genuine friendships. Also, this experience gave me empathy. Now I understand how students who are truly struggling financially feel. Brittany asked curiously, so what did you tell your family? What do they think? My dad was worried at first, but then he said, this will make you stronger. My mom, it was harder to convince. She's always worried. Is my daughter cold or hungry? Maria said, laughing. Madison suddenly felt a pang of guilt. When I think about all the times we've shown you pity, I feel so ashamed. Don't be ashamed. It's my choice, not yours. And the best part is, now you really know who I am. Not my money, but me. From that day on, their friendship changed completely. Maria wasn't hiding anymore, but she wasn't showing off either. She began wearing high quality yet simple clothes. She agreed to go to more expensive restaurants with her friends, but always insisted on paying equally. Money shouldn't be used to influence friendships, she said. Madison, Brittany, and Jackson had changed too. They were now more careful about judging people based on their appearance. They were more open to other different students on campus. One day, Madison told Maria, "This experience has made us better people." "All of us," Maria replied. Towards the end of the year, as Maria and her group mates were presenting their projects, Professor Williams congratulated them. "Your group project was the most successful this semester. Not only was your academic success excellent, but your teamwork was also excellent." As they walked out after the presentation, Jackson said, "Maria, do you remember the first time we met? I thought you were someone who couldn't get grades." "I thought you were someone who was only friends with money," Maria said with a laugh. "How wrong we all were," Brittany said. When Maria was finishing her sophomore year at Harvard, she planned to start a program for scholarship students at the university. She wanted to help students facing real financial challenges because now I know, she told her friends, that true wealth isn't just about money. It's about understanding, empathy, and genuine friendships. Her nickname, Bargain Maria, was forgotten on campus. Instead, her friends called her Wise Maria, not just for her academic knowledge, but for what she taught them about life. Maria's story taught all students at Harvard a valuable lesson. Judging people by their appearance is one of the biggest mistakes. True wealth lies not in material possessions, but in character and genuine relationships. And sometimes the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected places.